Okay, well, welcome everyone. It is 3:31. We are going to get started today's session. So normally we'd say mute your microphones, but this is a webinar style, so you don't even have the option. You guys don't have an actual audio voice, haha. But that being said, you do have the Q&A and you do have this wonderful chat that some people are already making use of. So please make use of the chat. We'll be monitoring it and the Q&A as well for myself to feed up to the panelists. So before we get started, I'm going to invite Chris up to say a few words about something cool.
Hi there, everybody out in Zoomland. We've got kind of an exciting announcement this week at Tourism Burnaby. We launched our very first and only merch store. So I'm just going to share my screen with you here. And the reason why I'm here plugging this is we're actually going to be raising some money for some really great charities in town. So if you go to the Tourism Burnaby .com website and go to the store tab up at the top, you can take a look. We've got 3 designs up so far, and we're going to be adding another 2 or 3 this next week. But basically, you have the opportunity to show some Burnaby pride. We've got the Playground of the Gods for those of you up at SFU. I've got Burnaby Heights to show your pride for Burnaby North. And if you want to go old school hipster, we've got the old Telus building up at the corner of Kingsway and Boundary as well up there. And as I mentioned, we'll have a couple more in the coming week or so. So basically, what we're doing is we've set this up so that after the cost of the t-shirts and the shipping itself, all other proceeds will be going to the 5 charities listed along the side here. So Kidsport Burnaby, Burnaby Hospice Society, Burnaby Firefighters Charitable Society, Burnaby Neighborhood House, and Burnaby Hospital Foundation. So we're not taking a profit from this. So it's kind of a way to look good, support your community, and support these local charities as well. So thanks again for having me.
Now, Chris, this is
Yeah.
off the cuff here. You know what I'm gonna say. Um,
Are you looking for a free T-shirt for a giveaway for today?
yeah. For the best question for the panelists, can we, are we able to do that there?
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So there's some motivation here, folks, to kind of ask some great questions of Jerry, Austin, and Morgan here. So yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And Chris, I'll just put you back into the audience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Take care, everyone.
Chris. It kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Okay, so thank you so much. So Tourism Burnaby and Connect with Burnaby, very proud to present to you today's session called Back to School, Reality Check. A little bit about really quickly, I just want to make a special note that with Connect with Burnaby, we have added Maria Bushman has joined us, and she is fantastic to help us do some coordinating and basically kind of help out with our leadership and be able to bring some focus to our already very focused group. So welcome, Maria, if you're out there in the audience. A little bit about our session today. We're going to talk to Austin, Morgan, and Jerry, and they're going to each present some stuff. And I'm going to introduce them all really, really quickly and just basically let them take it away. So 5 more minutes of me talking and then it's off for you guys, okay? So Austin graduated from Mosscroft Secondary School and he's supposed to be attending UCLA in the fall, majoring psychology. That's fantastic. I'm not going to say too much more because he has a bunch of stuff and I was going to give it all away, but thank you, Austin. Welcome. Morgan does lots of stuff. She's a proud BCIT graduate. She is a leader, whether she's serving as director of sales or marketing in the arts community. And as well, she just told us that she's now doing a doctorate. And she is, I believe you are, oh yeah, you also taught in the marketing management department from 2015 to 2020. So on top of all that, you're just juggling all kinds of stuff. So really excited to hear your perspective of things. Jerry is from Pacific Blue Cross, and he likes to help people and organizations. I mean, he's the guy to go to, right? Oh, Jerry. He provides strategic innovation direction as a director of human resources. So formally, he's the director of human resources at Pacific Blue Cross. I do want to acknowledge that is not an easy role. He leads organization best practices for talent acquisition, labor relations, ability management, HR technology, and total rewards over the past 3.5 years. That sounds like a huge portfolio. I'm interested to hear what else you have to tell us too. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to, who did I say first? Jerry first. Jerry first to take us through everything that's going on in your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. You know, for myself, a resident of Burnaby and in North Burnaby, and I saw that picture of Burnaby Heights. I definitely need to get one of those T-shirts as well too. So I'm glad to support the Burnaby community here as well. You know, I think for Pacific Blue Cross in this topic with regards to the back to school reality, you know, obviously from an employee-employer perspective, you know, there's things that as an employer, especially at our size, because we have about 750 employees in our organization. And, you know, so there's things that we want to do for our staff and support them through, you know, these difficult times as well too. And, you know, back to school reality is one challenge. There's a number of other challenges, which I won't get into today with what we're dealing with today. But, you know, obviously this is probably one of the more frequent ones that do come up within our organization. You know, the one thing about Pacific Blue Cross, we are a unionized environment, but we have a very collaborative union that we work with as well too. And, you know, being an insurance carrier, you know that our employees are well taken care of in terms of benefits and whatnot. And so, you know, some of the things that we had pre-pandemic has kind of carried forward and has provided us as an advantage going into what we're going to deal with right now. So, you know, our staff have a lot of flexibility. Those who are non-scheduled, they have a lot of flexibility in terms of the fact that they can work up to 35, they work a minimum 35 hours a week within a Monday to Friday period. So they can kind of pick and choose what hours they want to work. So if you're a parent and you're dealing with kids going back to school, you know, as long as you're working the little core hours that we've got set in the collective agreement, they really can work at any time between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they can spread that time out throughout the day, or they can spread it out throughout the week as well too, because we know that some parents have chosen to, you know, to homeschool, and they're not prepared to send their kids back to school. So, so we recognize that, and you know, we've got ways to adapt. And you know, I think the month of June, when kids went back to school part-time, that was sort of a dry run for PBC to go through. And, you know, we're really proud to say that, you know, through that 1 month period, really out of, you know, 750 employees that we have, and, you know, predominantly a lot of our folks are kind of in that Gen X area, maybe, you know, who have young kids. The fact that, well, I think we only had probably just one case where we had to deal with on a case by case where we needed to make some exceptions for that individual. But for the most part, the way that organization is set up allows our parents to deal with the reality of kids going to school and whatnot. So, so, you know, really good in terms of that perspective. And now we're kind of planning for what the long-term plan is going to look like, because our organization was never a work from home, work from office, or a blended office approach before. So when the pandemic hit, 750 employees had to start to work from home. And you can imagine all the equipment that we had to get set up for each individual. We did it within a 2-week time frame. So it was really good to, I think it was a proud moment for our IT group to be able to get that done in a very short period of time. So, so Adrian, I don't know if you want me to go into the next aspect in terms of sort of how we're adapting now and what we're looking to adapt in the future. Do you want to save that for later?
I would love for you to, yeah.
Okay, sure. So I do have something quickly to share with the group here in terms of sort of what we've kind of gone through here. And I promise it's not going to take that long. It's like 5 slides at the very most here. But I think what's really important as we started to deal with the pandemic and now kind of figuring out what the long-term journey is going to look like, it's really important that as an organization, any sort of initiative, any sort of thing that we embark, that it's rooted in guiding principles. And so we always start with guiding principles and develop guiding principles and make sure everyone's aligned to these guiding principles. And really, the 4 guiding principles that we have here is to protect our employees, protect our brand, protect our business, and protect our customers, which we call them and refer to them as members. So every decision that we make, every policy that we develop, every protocol that we create, every signage that we do, does it refer back to one of these guiding principles? And I think that's really important as we started this journey through, this new normal that we had to go through. So that was the guiding principles. And so what we did here, and I won't go through this in great detail, but I think just to kind of give you an idea in terms of how we kind of prepared our office and our organization through this pandemic, and what we did to adapt and what we're doing to adapt, further adapt in the future here. So when the middle of March happened, and I think even before that, before the province declared, the state of emergency and all that, like we had already done some work within the office when staff were still in the office. We increased our cleaning services. We made sure that a lot of the highly touched areas were cleaned on a frequent basis. We reminded staff about personal hygiene, so we had a lot of signage on that as well too. And it's a change. It's a significant change that people were going through, and we needed to start to go down the path of educating our staff. And when the middle of March happened, like I said, about 750, 800 employees exited the building and started to work from home immediately after. But we were deemed essential services under the BC government's plan. So we did have a small crew in the office. We called it the skeleton crew in the office, just to kind of keep the lights on and just kind of manage some of the day-to-day that came in. And so, we had a small crew, but what we wanted to do was align to the BC Restart Plan. And as you can see here, what the BC Restart Plan in the blue bar is sort of that sort of time frame. So we wanted to similarly match that, but also be behind it as well too, because we wanted to see how the BC Restart Plan was going to happen before we kind of took our next steps. And so we knew at some point, once the province started to open up again, dentists started to take patients again, physio, chiro, massage clinics start to open up, optometry clinics start to come up. So when that work started to happen again, more claims and more calls started to ramp up. And so we started to see, obviously, a climb of work coming back. And so, we also wanted to listen to our people, because that was really important. And again, like I said, it's one of our guiding principles. And so by listening to our people, we did a survey. We surveyed every single employee and to understand what their preference was, whether they wanted to work from home or work from the office. And we also wanted to learn what were some of the challenges that they're facing if they're working from home. So it could have been, our topic today about, this back to school reality. It could have been elder care. It could be their own health. It could be other reasons as well too. And so the purpose of the survey that we sent was to find out how many people actually really wanted to work in the office. And based on those numbers, could we achieve it? Could we do it so in a safe manner? And so basically what ended up happening was we had probably about, in total, about 120 employees out of our 750, 800 employees that wanted to return back into the office for a variety of reasons. And I won't get into that. But so we made that happen, but we did that in a phased approach again within our stage 2. And so we brought in 15 employees one week, and then another 15 and another 15 and another 15. But we took a while. We didn't start bringing people back until probably about July-ish. And I think a lot of that was because we started to develop and create new policies or refine policies, new protocols, make sure proper signage is in place, make sure we're meeting WorkSafe BC's safety guideline plans. And I think PBC is proud to share that, we were the type of organization where we wanted to be more than just meeting the minimum. We were well above what was requested as a minimum, and we put some measures in place in our office to ensure the safety of our staff. And so we're really proud that we were able to do that. It took us a little bit longer than we would like to, but I think the longer that we held out, the more things started to come up, and we had to think through every single scenario. And now we're at a point now where we can safely say that we have a little bit more staff in the office. I think we have about 120 employees in the office today right now, and that's been going really well. And we'll see what ends up happening in September. We think that we may increase another 25, 30 employees into the office if needed, and we have that wiggle room if we need to trigger that. But on the most part, we like to keep the same numbers as we have all the way through to the end of the year. So, one of the things we did was prepare the office, like I mentioned. And then what we did next is prepare the processes that we had to deal with. So which is, dealing with protocols, policies, signages, checklists, training, change management, all that kind of stuff. And then preparing the people. Obviously, we needed to train all of our staff to understand what it's like to wear a mask in the office, to practice social distancing, to follow all the signage that's in the office, making sure when you go into the washroom that you respect the occupancy number of people going into the washroom, or not having any meetings in the office, and that you're using and utilizing technology like Zoom or Skype to do such things. And every employee had to go through a training e-learning module before coming back to the office, and there was an acknowledgement form that they had to sign off on as well, to ensure that they've read all the policies and that they abide by all the policies as well. So we wanted to prepare the people, and the people had to invest some of their time to make sure that they understand what it's going to take for them to return back to the office. What the future is going to look like is, I guess, how Premier Morgan always calls it as the new normal. And so what we're looking at is how are we going to build our new culture North Star? And so we're sort of in the works right now as we speak to figure out what that long-term plans look like. Right now, currently in our office, you either can 100% work from home or 100% work from the office. There's no hoteling, there's no blended approach right now, because we want to limit the number of ins and outs in the office, again, for the safety of our staff members. And obviously from a contact tracing perspective, if we were to get into that point, then it'd be a lot easier to contact trace when you know exactly who's in the office as well. So we don't encourage any hoteling right now, but we know that for the future is something that our staff has said they would love to do, and I would love to do it, and we would love to do it. But we got to make sure we do it in a safe manner and that we're following our guiding principles at the end of the day. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully I didn't take too much time, Adrian, but that's sort of BBC's approach.
Wonderful. And okay, so I will move on to Morgan.
Hi, folks. Morgan Westcott here. I am the Associate Dean for the Marketing Management Program at BCIT. And as mentioned in the intro, I was a student in the tourism option, graduated, worked in industry, did some cool stuff, came back, taught, and then became the Associate Dean in June. So always a great idea to take on a new role in the middle of a pandemic, I think, right? Right. I know a lot of you on the call, I heard a rumor that there's some young people on the call that are really curious about BCIT in general, and also about kind of what the fall is going to look like, et cetera, just get myself organized. I love PowerPoint, guys. It's because I was a teacher for so long, so I'm just going to PowerPoint my way through this. And then if you have questions, I know we're going to have time later, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or even just give you my contact info for later if it gets super specific. So in thinking about the fall term for our options, so marketing management is one of the options in the School of Business and Media. We also have broadcast, we have operations management, financial management, business management. We pretty early on in the process, right? So what happened, it was March break, and I went to a conference where I heard Tourism Burnaby speak, and came home from the tourism industry conference in Victoria, and wasn't feeling very well, and actually ended up staying home. Me and my 5-year-old stayed home, and that's when I had to prep for online teaching, right? Because it was like, okay, I'm not feeling well. It's March break. Next week I'm supposed to teach, but I need to keep myself home. And by that weekend, like the Canucks game was canceled, stuff got real. And so all of the instructors in our department were kind of in a similar boat. I actually had an advantage because I was already not feeling well. So I had a plan A, which was Morgan gets better and we go back to class. And plan B was Morgan gets better, but this is really happening. And so I had already worked on my plan B, and it turns out that's what it ended up being. So we had to pivot online pretty fast. So looking towards the fall term, what we decided in the School of Business and Media is if a program can be online only, it's online only. So there's very few exceptions where in the School of Business and Media, they need to be on campus. And those are our broadcast students. They're learning how to do stuff like this and be TV journalists, and they need a lot of equipment for that. In the courses where they need that equipment, they're doing all kinds of safety precautions. The rest of us are staying completely off campus so we can give space to the programs that really need the space. And BCIT is huge, right? So we've got carpentry, we've got people working on cars. Like, you can't do that stuff virtually. So they've been having classes, and our plan for the rest of us is to stay out of their way, right? So it's a strategy of, we can do this online. We've got this. And the challenge for us for this fall, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what BCIT is like in our full-time studies. So BCIT has part-time studies. That's choose your own adventure. Also very cool. In our full-time studies, we're very different from other schools. So we give you your timetable, and your timetable typically will have 8 classes in it. And I'm just going to show you some things that our students have said about BCIT. I mean, at the end of the day, BCIT, we're all such nuts about BCIT, is because you go to BCIT and you're going to get a job that you like, hopefully, right? That's sort of what we're geared towards. But to get you there, we do this thing that's called the cohort model. We're like, here's your group. It's called a set. Here's your group. And you guys are a little pack, and you're going to take the same courses at the same time, all 25 of you. That's set. It's called cohort-based education. Lots of cool studies on why it works. This is what it's like for the students, right? It's like boot camp. It's harder than I imagined. It was like being pushed to do more than humanly possible. I used boot camp a lot when I was a BCIT student. It's like a kayak trip over rough seas, right? Your surroundings seem challenging and unpredictable, but you become more and more comfortable. It's about more than just studying and getting knowledge. It's about this connection with other people and people who have the same passion and purpose in life. So for marketing management, you know, we have different options. We have tourism, we have professional sales, we have entrepreneurship, we have marketing communications, which is like really like the advertising and promotion and all that. You get to know these people super, super well, and they become your immediate network, right? As you're trying to navigate this together. We grow people at BCIT, right? As people, not just academically. BCIT stands for being crammed into teams. So it doesn't matter what program you're in at BCIT, there is tons of teamwork. And not everyone loves it. It does feel like you're being crammed into it sometimes, but it's part of the experience. This is a quote from Maria Bushman, who's already gotten a shout out on this call. She was one of my students. She said, "It's not that it's a marathon or a sprint. BCIT is a sprinting marathon. It keeps you on your toes. It'll test you to the point of tears sometimes. It's hard. It can be intimidating, but that's why you're here." We take the skills and aptitudes people have and we refine them into efficient working professionals. It's like taking cough syrup when you're sick. You really don't want to. It tastes awful, but it works and you're happy that you did, and it's doable. It's really fast-paced and it's busy, but it's doable. So this is the culture that we have in BCIT in this cohort model. This is what we're known for. This is our secret sauce. And so the challenge for us, right, is a couple of things. First of all, this cohort model is about community. And so our second year students, the students that started first year last year, got to know each other, and then, you know, spring break happened and then they managed to pivot online. They've had a chance to connect. But our first year students haven't had that chance yet. And we are not going to be having an orientation on campus the way that we normally do. So we have been working all summer. Like instructors who normally get the summer off, that's what we promise them. Hey, you'll be an instructor, you get the summer off. That's not been happening behind the scenes, right? We've been working really hard. So one of the things that BCIT created was this student success hub. So instead of coming to orientation, you get registered in an online course and it will walk you, there's videos, it talks to you about all the services that are available to you on campus and where to find those things on campus when campus is your bedroom, right? How do you navigate this? And introducing students to the concept that, hey, you're actually in a little pack, right? And you're in a little pod of people and you have each other to rely on, and trying to foster that. So we've got these special little social media projects that we're doing to that end. And then within just the School of Business and Media, we have our own student info exchange. And this is where we're trying to build some of that community, trying to make sure everybody has the right contact info for the right person. It's hard, right? Normally we have this hallway and people just wander down the hallway and they find who they need, and we don't have that right now. So we're trying to create these online spaces that students can wander through and go, oh, okay, I need to talk to a librarian about this. I need to talk to someone else about that. So then the second challenge is adapting everything, right? So we normally hand our students a timetable with 8 courses in it or 7 courses in it. And what we had to do as a marketing department, not every department responded the same way, but we have this kinder and gentler approach as a School of Business across the board. And what we did in marketing is we said, well, we're not going to give our students 7 courses to take at a time. It's just not the same when you're online. So we're doing something called 7 and 7. I don't know how we came up with that name, but basically, you know, we've divided it up so that the sets by set, the students are in these clusters and they end up only taking 4 classes at a time. And the course they take the longest, like the backbone of their program, you can kind of see there is Marketing 1102, which is Essentials of Marketing, because we really want marketing students to get that one, really get it. And then in the winter term, we've shortened the whole term and we actually have some leftover room at the end. So students can either complete a bit faster, because again, it's just a lot to come to school online, or they can use that extra time to make up any courses that they maybe had to drop or they were struggling with. Because if we might find that a student comes in and goes, I just can't get this math thing online. We wanted to build in an insurance policy where they could pick that course up and not go into summer school, right? We're trying to prevent that. So the other things that our instructors are doing is they're not just taking their class and putting it online, they're redesigning their courses. So instead of major assignments, they're carving it up into little assignments that you can do so that you can kind of stay on track a bit easier. We're not having exam weeks, right? And we're pushing back on instructors and saying like, can't do a 2-hour online exam. You're gonna have to take that and make it into little quizzes so that the students can follow along. So we're providing resources to our instructors. We have to teach our teachers how to teach online. And that's what a lot of this summer has been about. So our faculty, our instructors are getting enrolled into courses as well, where they're learning how to become better instructors online. And then a lot of the resources that we've already had online, we're making better, I would say. So we have a timetables website that's always been kind of nicer than the way that your timetable gets served up otherwise. And this got redesigned so that it's even easier to use. Anywhere that we can make something easier and smoother, we're doing our darndest. We also created this BYOD, bring your own device. So we're trying to tell students like, this is exactly how you set up for term so that they know what to expect so that they can kind of build their own classroom environment the best they can. Lots more resources available on a very special website created for tech help. We're using something called Early Assist, and we've always had this, but we're using it more so that if a student's having a hard time, we can actually flag that student earlier and get them the help they need as early as possible. And just things like, this is a long, boring document you don't want to see, but on the back end, our instructors are getting much more direction on how complete their course outlines need to be and really how to get that online learning up to a next level. So really what we're trying to do as a department, as a school, as an institute is support each other, lean on all these teams that we have. I heard an instructor say the other day, you know, I really didn't know what they do in the library or what they do in that department. But now I know, because as instructors we're having to get that help, and as teams we're having to get that help. We just completed a student success webinar series. So every Monday and Tuesday night, there were faculty and associate deans hosting webinars to help try and get students ready. And those are all available on our website for people to view. So you can kind of see the feedback that we're giving the students to help prepare them. I think the bottom line for us is, yes, we're moving online and it's not ideal, but that's what's happening in the world. And BCIT is all about preparing people for a complex world. So by having our students come to class online and deal with, like, how do I run a team meeting in Zoom, and how do I get this assignment handed in on time? That's going to help our students, I think, be really successful in this, oh God, I'm going to use the term new normal. We're trying to help students be ready for that, right? By doing things like this. Working overtime, that's us. That's the associate deans and the staff and the faculty are all working overtime so that our students don't have to, so that our students can find the information they need. And we are taking it term by term. So it would be super cool if we had a crystal ball and we could say what's happening in January. I get asked that every day. What's happening in January is we don't know yet. So we're looking at the health restrictions. We're being super proactive. You know, we were one of the first institutes, and our school were one of the first to let students know what was happening for fall. And I think we're just going to try and continue with that. As soon as we know, students will know about that we're planning everything just so that people can be optimally safe, because we're seeing now, as you probably know, in the States, right, some pretty big name universities just went back to school in the fall without any kind of modification plan, and those programs had to shut down, right? So it's as disappointing as it was, I think, for a lot of students that really wanted to get together in the fall. I think we made the right choice, because we've been using this time to just make it the best online experience that we can possibly offer. And so it's been very proactive, right, instead of being reactive. So that's our plan, is to just keep trying to envision as many possible things that we can and work towards many different possibilities, and make the call when we need to. Oh, you don't want to see that again. Outside of COVID, I was asked, what's happening in your life outside of COVID? I don't know, this is not relevant to BCIT at all, but what a great time to explore our backyard in British Columbia. We are so lucky. That's my backyard in East Van. And just throw a rock over Boundary Road and I'm in Burnaby. Mountain biking, just everything that we can do. I encourage everyone who's on the call to go do in a safe way, because we are so lucky that this is where we are, quote unquote, stuck, right? We've got it pretty good here. That's it for me. I'm going to try and unshare my video. There we go. Stop screen sharing.
Thank you so much, Morgan.
Just hammered all that stuff at you.
No, it was great. We got some questions coming your way for everyone's way. I'm just sort of like keeping track of them. We'll address them during Q&A. Austin, let you take it away.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes,
can. Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you it's really nice to hear how the corporate and the higher education sections, how they're adapting to these changes. Like, personally for me, it just feels comforting just to know that these institutions, they're making changes to support us. So it's great to hear. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, so as Adrian mentioned before, so my name is Austin. I recently graduated from Musgrave Secondary, and I'm going to UCLA in the fall, although not physically. It's definitely not what we all expected. Since like the beginning of grade 12, I was really looking forward to transitioning to college, having a graduation, but circumstances do change. And like, I had my graduation and also my orientation. They've been all taking place on Zoom. So stuff is changing, but students like us, on behalf of all the students, we're changing, we're adapting our behavior, and it's pretty good practice for the future when we enter the workforce. So before I get started into the main theme, I would like to introduce the Burnaby Youth Hive. So this is an initiative that a few of my friends and I have been working on while we've been staying home. So I'm going to pass it off to my fellow board member, Angelina Chen. She's on the panel right now to introduce this initiative.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Angelina Chen and I'm going to grade 11 at St. Thomas More Collegiate this upcoming September. Having realized how big an impact COVID-19 has had on my education, my friend Austin and I, along with several other friends, started the Burnaby Youth Hive initiative. So we are a group of 4 to 6 Burnaby High School / university students, simply interested in supporting the youth community during the pandemic through providing resources as well as seeking answers to important questions that we as youth have in mind. At first, we focused our initiative on getting factual information from politicians regarding government efforts during COVID-19. We've already hosted 3 successful virtual youth town halls on Zoom, featuring Burnaby MLAs and MPs such as Jagmeet Singh, Peter Julian, Katrina Chen, and more. We also hope to create a resource that can be accessible by students, teachers, and parents regarding the new norm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angelina. And we also would like to extend our thanks to Tourism Burnaby, who has been supporting us. Without your support from the community engagement aspect, we couldn't have shaped our initiative to how it is today. So thank you very much. So I'm gonna get started talking about my personal experiences, sort of, with this transition to online learning. And just for all the attendees, normally when we do our Zoom calls, they're called buzz hours for the Zoom calls that we do in our organization. We like to keep it really engaged. And so basically, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A box. I can answer them spontaneously or at the end. So, this is just a few screenshots from our webinars with the Burnaby politicians. As you can see, there's Jagmeet Singh, a few local MLAs, which we try to facilitate an open discussion for topics relating to the new norm. Yeah, so I'll go over this slide in a bit. So I'll start talking a bit about my personal experience. So actually last week, I started a summer session at UCLA. So I'm actually starting online courses. Had my first midterm already, online exams, very different experience. And there's many changes that have been impacting the quality of education and also staying motivated to be active in the learning process. Those are 2 main themes that I want to cover today. Starting off with the motivation aspect. In March and April, so all the crisis is beginning to take shape, right, in these 2 months. We've noticed that many high school students, especially in the transitioning grades, like grade 7 to grade 8, grade 12 to post-secondary, it's been completely, there hasn't been much clarity at all in these past 5 months. From personal experience, when I found out that I got accepted to a few US universities, I was really in a dilemma between choosing to go to the States or staying local because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It took me a long time to decide between these two schools. And other than that, after I decided to accept my offer to UCLA, it's been basically changes every week. Like some weeks I was pretty adamant on flying down there in the fall. But then, as everyone knows, the States is not doing too well, especially in Los Angeles. So now I'll be staying home for the entire year, likely, until the next academic year. So next year, 2021, October, which completely changed my plans. And I'm starting to realize the reality of this because staying at home, paying these really high international tuition as well, only getting the experience of learning on Zoom. It's been 5 to 6 hours of Zoom for me each day. It's not only the academics that are getting impacted, but the other aspects of university life, the social life, student organizations, building positive rapport with your professors and fellow classmates. All of that I've been finding really difficult to accomplish in the past few weeks during my online classes. For example, during the office hours with professors, it's been really difficult to have casual and spontaneous conversations with the professor. And although there's a lot of resources that are created to support these students who may be having trouble, I found many of them, they haven't really been as helpful and accommodating as I would expect. And also, so just on the screen right here, I'll quickly go over. These are a few concerns that I've gathered from my friends in a short survey. As you can see, there seems to be a common theme between this in all of these comments. Many of them is the social aspect, but also simply the people, because like with social distancing, like I'll repeat it again, but it's really hard to build meaningful networks and have meaningful conversations with your peers and professors in this setting. So that sort of transitions into the next theme, which is the value of education. Because right now, my entire year staying 1/4 of my education at home, I'm starting to question, is it still worth these high tuition fees to simply have staying home in my room? My room is now my dorm room. Not being able to experience what was previously the previous worth of university, not being able to experience that. And then I know some people have questions about the tuition that we can go over later. I'll transition to Angelina relating to the quality of education. I think she has a few statistics that she would like to share about the value of education, how that's changing in the new norm. Angelina, are you there? Angelina?
Yeah, I think she's just coming back on.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so there's a few statistics regarding the value of education. Like now everyone's asking, not only the students, but also parents, even some teachers, like some of my teachers have been reaching out to me asking, how am I doing? How's your transition going? So Angelina, would you like to share?
Can you hear me? Okay, wonderful. Yes, Austin, I can definitely relate. And this is also my personal concern as I will be graduating high school in 2 years. And I'm currently very worried about my post-secondary education. I am confused, like most of my peers actually, about not only the motivation to keep studying, but also like the future quality of education as a whole, about whether it is still worth it, especially financially, to attend universities, or should youth simply join the workforce directly after high school. I do understand that today's topic is back to school and education. And one major concern that not only me, but all students have is whether online/hybrid education would still be worth it amid sky-high university tuition fees. If you think about it, university has become the most expensive streaming service, more than Netflix, Disney, Crave, and Pix TV combined. Why do I say this? Currently, education basically looks like students trying to focus and learn by watching their devices' screens on streaming platforms such as Zoom or Google Meet. To pay for all the streaming services combined, like Netflix, Disney, and all that good stuff, only adds up to approximately $100 Canadian per month. However, for US university streaming services on platforms like Zoom can cost international students about $5,250 a month, compared to Canadian universities that cost roughly $593 per month for a domestic student and double for an international student. The value of universities seems to have decreased and downgraded even so much now that in the past that we now start to doubt whether we should actually actively go seek a university education as people typically tell us to. University graduates are now forced to work quicker and harder as they start working in the real society, as they step into the workforce. Also, can you imagine 4 years behind those who do not choose to seek post-secondary education and roughly $25,000 in debt for these university graduates? Unlike people who've lost their jobs on a temporary basis, the real problem, I feel like, lies with people like me who will be trying to get into the workforce, like start finding a job and start seeking work experience with burdens on both time and financial debt, especially now since we have so few opportunities for volunteering and both for like internships and work opportunities. So now it's really doubtful times whether even a university education will still be worth it.
Yeah, like Angelina mentioned, the tuition, the tuition fees, sort of the decrease in the previously considered value of education, it sort of puts me in it's a really awkward position because I'm not sure if I made the right choice now that everything is changing. But also we don't know what the new normal is, right? It's not like Morgan mentioned, the crystal ball. We're still figuring out the new norm. Angelina brought up a few points that I want to continue on. So the aspect of internships and community engagement. So regarding that, I know a few friends, they have many, many concerns about getting internships, not only internships, just community experience, since to be a competitive performer in society, it's preferred that people have community experience, right? Like in public schools in Burnaby, we have the volunteer requirement, which that's another thing that we're not really clear about yet, right? But just the idea that this generation right now, grade 10s, grade 11s, grade 12s, first year, second year university students, they don't have the same access to community events that they can volunteer at, gain meaningful networks with community leaders, also gain the work experience. That's something that many of us are really concerned about, especially if this COVID crisis continues. We don't know how long it's going to be, right? Everyone's in this state of confusion, which leads to them not being motivated to seek these opportunities themselves. So relating that back to Burnaby Youth Hive, that's something that we hope to become a platform for comfort, like addressing this concern, bridging the connections between youth and community leaders. Many students, they want the opportunities right now. They're very eagerly longing for any volunteer opportunities, online or in person, that they can snatch onto. But the problem is there aren't any. And even with the recent scandal, the CSSG, is not only the lack of opportunities that leaves an impact on them, but also the mental aspect, because with this scandal, many students are just interpreting it as the government doesn't really, not really considering youth to the best of what they should be, like up to their expectations, especially with the scandal. Yeah, so these two challenges, like finding the value of remote education, navigating learning in ambiguous time, these two are sort of the overarching themes of what I just talked about. And I know I saw a question in the Q&A, any advice that I have for like grade 12 students doing online learning. So to all the students out there, online learning is definitely not ideal. There's lots of barriers to active learning process, like the discussion is not as spontaneous as before. But if I could give three adjectives to frame your mindset in the new online learning environment, it would be to be more resourceful. So in my personal experience, basically just directly emailing the professor, trying to replicate the same experience. This will be different for every person, but being resourceful, trying to find stuff that makes you intrinsically motivated, especially now with all the decrease in motivation. It's important for people to cling on to stuff that really genuinely interests them. And finally is to have a growth mindset and focus on what you can control right now, but also start planning for when this crisis ends so that you can sort of have a head start when everything returns back to the new normal. So that would be my advice.
Austin, so I am going to cut you off because we do have some questions we want to address too. But I do thank you for the thoroughness of your presentation thus far. I would definitely want to open up that we might want to share your slides out to some folks after the fact. But so thank you. We are going to move over to Q&A, and I know that some people have been pretty active into that in the Q&A, but there's a question for Jerry. If you're ready for it, Jerry, what are some key wins and initiatives that stand out in terms of your pandemic HR policies that you would recommend to other companies if they haven't done so already?
Yeah, I think you need to think about ensuring that in a workplace you're providing clarity, so that people are following guidelines, protocols, policies, and whatnot. So some of the policies that we've had to either create or revise are, a lot of it is really interim basis and due to the pandemic. So we created an interim work from home policy and interim work from office policy. And those two were really important to help our staff understand sort of the clarity of what it means to work from home and what it means to work in the office, and what protocols and what things that they need to follow to ensure their safety and their peers' safety as well too. You know, we revised the fitness for work policy. So we developed a fitness for work policy when, I hate to say it, when cannabis became legalized. And so that kind of, we started with creating a fitness for work policy to ensure that if employee was not fit to work, that they should not be coming into work. Again, safety related as well too. And so we provide some guidelines there as well. And we just kind of revised that a little bit, obviously with a bit of COVID in there as well, in case if somebody were to fall into or have symptoms of COVID as well. We developed a COVID-19 illness policy, again, providing clarity in what sort of the next steps to take if you start to feel symptoms of COVID, may not necessarily have it, or if you do have symptoms of COVID, what are the next steps? And so we created an interim policy for those type of situations as well. And then there's a COVID-19 monitoring policy that we've also implemented too. So one of the things that we did as an organization, a conscious decision that we made, and you know, I know it could be controversial in other places, is we actually have thermal cameras when employees walk into the building to take their temperature. And so because of that, we had a lot of work that we had to do behind the scenes to make sure from a privacy perspective that we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's, as well, ensuring that if you were to get a temperature above 38 degrees Celsius, what are sort of the next steps and what do you need to do? So, you know, those are some of the things that I don't know if I would call them quick wins yet, because I think at the end of the day, it provides more clarity for employees, because really at the end of the day, you're wanting to ensure the safety of others in the workplace. And all of this got wrapped up into a nice little gift box with a bow on top, by presenting it in a very easy to understand manner through an e-learning module that employees need to go through. And it wasn't a very long one, but it took a lot of the key points from the policies and protocol documents and really put it into one, and just to make it easy to understand. And because it's not easy to read a policy document, nor do people have the attention span to read a policy document. And when you start to issue out 6 or 7 or 8 of them, you're going to start to lose people. And so it was important that, you know, we don't lose sight of the fact that we need to inform our staff, and we need to do it in a way that captures their attention, that they can retain it, and that they can also be responsible for it as well too, because they do have a responsibility on their end to ensure they're creating a safe environment in the office. And so those were some of the wins that we had there. It's still a learning process, just like not everybody wears a mask. You know, I think it's one of those things where we didn't make it mandatory. However, we did make it as a requirement if you can't practice social distancing. And so, you know, one example would be an employee would leave their desk to go to the washroom, but they didn't put their mask on. But you don't know who you're going to get in contact with from where you sit to where the washroom is. And you could be in contact with somebody that's less than 2 meters. So, so we're having to remind staff, and it's a change in behavior that people have to go through. And so we're doing it in an approach that's with kindness and empathy versus taking a very strong-handed approach. And so, you know, we're simply just reminding staff, just letting them know, hey, you know what, just so you know for next time that if you leave your desk, that you do put your mask on. And so our leaders are equipped to have those type of fierce conversations. And staff are very good at reporting some of these things. If they're not comfortable with addressing it on their own, then they'll bring it up with HR or with perhaps their department leader or their team lead. And one of us would address it immediately, right? Because we want to change that habit and that behavior as quickly as we can, so that everybody's comfortable working in the office. And so I think we're now at that point. We're a number of weeks into all of this now, and I think the behavior is starting to improve a lot. But I think, to answer your question in a long-winded way, that's what we did. But I think you really need to wrap it up in a way that captures your audience in a training format, whether it's probably an e-learning format, and do it in a way that's engaging, non-threatening, and in a way for people to retain information, because there's only so much you can retain at one time. So, but yeah.
Thank you. So there's the big question, and it's been asked quite a few times. Morgan, this is right at you.
Yeah. Hit me.
It's the big one. It's been asked in different ways, but let's just do it. Tuition.
Yeah.
To online learning, and Austin, you touched on it. Online learning, and I'm wrapping a bit of my stuff in here too. Online learning, international tuition, domestic learning. It's online. It's very to cut it down. I will liken it to Angelina's comparison to a streaming service. I do know, working higher ed, there's a lot more to it, but yeah, I mean, from a student perspective, you are signing on to something and watching something on your device. Like that is your experience right now. And you might get assignments, you might get some, do this and look at this, but you can just kind of do that on your own anyway. Just like if you're looking up when's the next season of whatever is coming out, right? It's sort of the same transaction. It's the same clicks. So basically, I think the question's around, what are your thoughts on that, Morgan, very specifically about tuition and sort of like the perceived, I'm going to use this as the perceived inequality.
Sure. So couple of things. We don't set tuition, right, at BCIT. So just want to be careful when we're dealing with this kind of COVID crisis, that we understand that like there are systems in place and there are systems within systems. And some of those are able to be changed really quickly and some of them aren't. But I'm actually going to say that our experience that we're offering our students is not the same as streaming at all. And I would want our students to hold us and our instructors accountable for delivering more than that. So I can't speak to what other experiences that students have had. Even our students, when we went to the like, oh my goodness, this is happening mode of survival, then yeah, they were kind of getting this like, I don't know, watch this thing, hand in this assignment. Like we were really working on the fly. What we've spent months doing now is designing our courses so they're not that. So for example, I'll just take Essentials of Marketing, this marketing class that everyone has to take. It is a live class with an instructor. It is not the same as a pre-recorded, just push a button, watch it experience. There are some classes where some pieces of the content may be delivered. It's called asynchronously, right? Like pick and choose when you can and watch it. So the experience for the student, it's not the same, but you are going to be in a webinar with instructors. They are going to break you into small discussion groups with people from your class so that you get to interact with them. There's a high degree, to the extent that we can, of interactivity. And that's a lot of work to produce. And I would invite students that when you pay your tuition, if you feel like you're in a course and it is just push a button and wow, I could learn this from a YouTube video, to get on that instructor. The great thing about sets at BCIT, by the way, is you get a set rep and they're like your class president, and that would be the perfect person to bring that up with. And that set rep will talk to our first year program head if you're in first year, or the appropriate program head in second year, and say, hey, we're taking a class and it is It is YouTube videos. And that's not what we came here to do. And we as a faculty, we are committed to addressing that. And we want to make sure that you're getting the best possible experience out of the online component. And the instant that we're allowed and able to get back into class in a safe way, we'll do it. And our instructors are already thinking of cool ways that, like, maybe it's in a field and maybe we've got to keep refreshing the weather app to make it happen. But, you know, getting everybody together, distanced in a field that, you know, that they can talk. So we don't have time for me to get into the complexities of how international or domestic works. Hey, if you're from Burnaby and your plans for the fall got derailed and you want a good value education, domestic tuition is affordable compared to international tuition. You've got a great school literally in your backyard, and that we're working so hard to deliver that value. The other thing is, I had a student asking, like, what's the point of going to school now? Like, I don't need to go to school because, so I'll just come back to the fact that, like, we serve industry, and industry is saying, I want employees who understand how to work from home. I want employees who understand how to be productive and hold meetings on Zoom. We want to hire people who understand how to market to audiences under these challenging circumstances. So we're all adapting our curriculum, and as the students adapt and the instructors adapt, you're going to learn those quote unquote soft skills that you will need to do what we're all doing. Right? You're going to learn how to function in this quote unquote new normal in a way that I would argue your friends that are hanging out and going to the beach and, you know, playing guitar or whatever other cool pursuits they're doing, they're not going to be learning how to work in this professional environment. This is our professional environment now. And you're going to learn how to do that by attending our courses. So I hope I've touched on a bit of that, on a bit of the value of going to school now and a bit of the value of coming to BCIT. And I know that there have been some questions in the chat that I've tried to answer with links. There have been some questions in the Q&A that I also answered, because some of them it's just like, here's the link. We do have this service at BCIT. But yeah, hopefully that helped on that one.
Yeah, could I just add something really quickly? So Morgan, you mentioned, so you recommend to students, since I know that I have my schedule for the first semester, and I realize all the classes are recorded, even the discussion sections, they're all recorded, which makes me puts me on uneasy a bit, because I don't know. But so you would recommend that we can directly reach out to the school, like saying, are there any alternative methods to teaching this? But the professors, they already recorded their lectures. So you would recommend still reaching out to the schools in this case?
Give it a shot, Austin. Give it a shot. I mean, I can only speak as an administrator at BCIT, right? And the way that we're structured and what we're doing. And it's not just because this is a commercial for BCIT. I'm doing my doctorate at UBC, and it's been the same thing there, where we're taking our classes synchronously in a Zoom meeting, and it's set up so that we have opportunities to talk in person with the instructor. It's just like this. And as a UBC student, if they came to me and they said, well, thank you for I won't tell you how much money my program costs, but thank you for your lots of money. Here's your link to your video. I would complain. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying stuff like this on a webinar. For sure. Be squeaky and say, look, like, I'm a squeaky wheel here. I paid a lot of money to sit in my bedroom in Canada, and I don't think I'm getting value out of this, for sure. I don't know, because I don't work for UCLA, how they'll respond or what the best channels are, but you guys are really bright people. And again, like, these are the life skills, like, that you're already learning, right? Like, I'm getting something that I'm not happy with, and how do I construct a complaint, and how do I move that forward, and how do I get what I want out of the situation, I'd say is the first lesson that you're probably learning as a UCLA student right there.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, like, also regarding the social aspect, like making new friends, like, this is really hard to replicate, but also to all the students out there, I recommend you also reach out to the school. Like, there should be some like RAs, residential advisors, these people who are managing the social life. since that's really hard to be replicated, especially if you're an international student going to another school with no one you know. In my case, yeah, a bit scary, but I recommend to the students, just extending from my advice, reach out to those people as well.
Thank you. So I do know we are 6 minutes over time. I do want to address one more question and then we are going to wrap it, but I will tease a couple things. One, we are planning on following up in our next Connect with Burnaby social hour. Sorry, I had the word buzz hour in my head because I really love the Austin, but we are going to follow up. So this isn't your last chance to ask questions. We do want to follow up with all your great questions. This has been a wonderful topic. We have one more question, but before that, I do want to just add to what Morgan has been saying. And this is for all the students and all the parents and people out there. I mean, education is an institution, capital I, which means it's very, very monolithic. It's been a staple in our society for a very, very long time. And I'm not going to say that it doesn't change. It will not change. It can change and it will change, but it's not going to come quickly. The rest of the world has responded and adapted to COVID and a pandemic incredibly quickly. Institutions, capital I again, banks, government, education, they're a lot slower because they're so huge. But they will have to change, and those changes will happen. And it starts with you guys and us all coming in that voice saying all these things that don't make sense in this world. That's how change is going to happen. So I don't want you guys to walk away from here going, oh, it's all doom and gloom and nothing's going to change. I'm just going to pay my millions of dollars into tuition. Yeah, you probably are going to be for a bit, let's be honest, but it will change. The last question we do have is to Jerry, and that's when organizations would they feel more pressure to resume the corporate travel program within Canada, in your opinion?
That's a very good question, and it's an internal struggle that we currently face today right now, because you can imagine our sales organization are just chomping on the bit, wanting to get out and meet their clients and resume business as usual. For us right now, we've made the conscious decision that for any sort of conferences, travel, and things like that, we're not allowing staff to do that. And that, and obviously it's for safety reasons as well too, and it's a wait and see approach. And so we've basically reduced all budget related to any sort of travel, business travel for that. Unless it's completely essential, then we will review those on a case by case. But we believe at the end of the day that you could probably do and conduct business travel through a Zoom meeting and do it in a safe manner. Again, going back to our guiding principles, protecting our people, that is a key thing that we need to ensure that we're practicing. And and there's going to be case by cases where we will have to review, where we may have to open it up a little bit. But we made a conscious decision in terms of the fact that business travel was halted until further notice. But I know our sales folks are making a pitch to us right now to see if they can open it up to them, and we'll hear what they have to say and we'll take it from there. So.
Well, thank you very much. And so it's 22. I'd like to say thank you everyone for joining us, all of the participants. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Angelina, for your perspectives. And we will see you guys online digitally, by email, by follow-up, and we'll hopefully see all of you next month at the next social hour. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.